Greetings and welcome to Edu-ca-te. Today we're going to be talking about trigonometry. So if you had watched our previous video, you're on the right place. Stay tuned. So it all starts here at the right angle triangle. Remember, a right angle triangle has got that 90 degrees indicated by that red. So today we're going to be talking about trigonometric ratios. So we've got certain trigonometric ratios when we are dealing with trigonometry. So trig ratios. So we've got the first one, which is called the sine. The first one is the sine. So the sine is of an angle. So the sine of an angle is equals to the opposite side over the hypotenuse of that triangle. So that is how you calculate the sine of a certain angle. So it's opposite over hypotenuse. So actually let me just write sin. That's how you just sort of write it in short, and then you put that theta, which represents an angle within that triangle. So sine of an angle, which is sine of theta, is equals to opposite of or over hypotenuse. So suppose we put 30 degrees there on angle C. So it means the angle that is formed by A and B, which is angle C, is equals to 30 degrees. So that theta is represented by 30 degrees, and we've got the opposite side of that 30 degrees, which is the y value, right? Here we've got the radius, the r, or the hypotenuse. How do you see the hypotenuse? You see, because it's opposite to the 90 degrees angle. So here you will have 90 degrees, so that shows that it's a right angle triangle. So the side opposite to the 90 degrees is called a hypotenuse. So the side opposite to this 30 degrees angle is the y side, or the vertical side. And then you can see, we can indicate because it's vertical, a vertical line is on the y, and then you've got the x side, which is the horizontal, which is adjacent to the 30 degrees. So we've got the horizontal and the vertical side. So how do we calculate the sine of this angle? We write sine of angle 30 degrees. We replace theta with 30 degrees being the angle, and then we suppose, let me just put a value of 5 on the y side, and then let me put a value of 6 on the r side. Okay, actually let me just put nothing at the r side. Suppose we want to solve the value of r, and we have got the y side and an angle of 30 degrees over there. So you write first, opposite is the y side, which is equal to y, right? You're just going to write y and then over. So that's why you can see it indicates the opposite, indicated by red, and then over the r side. The r side is the hypotenuse, or the longest side of a right angle triangle. You can say it, that side, that side AC. So it's equals to, we substitute the value and the y, which is 5, over r, which is unknown. So we do not know r. We're actually solving r using sine of an angle 30 degrees. So that r is unknown, so we don't know that, yet we have 5, and we also have the 30 degrees. So you use what you have to get what you do not have, not this. So we have 30 degrees over there and 5, and then we have to solve side r. So you can see that you can write that in form of a fraction, and then when you have an equal sign, you can cross multiply all those values. You can multiply 1 and 5, and you can multiply r and sine 30 degrees. So you're going to get the following values: 1 times 5, let's start with r times sine 30 degrees. Just write sine 30 degrees first, and then you write your r. That's how you multiply r with sine 30, which is equals to 1 multiplied by 5. So that is cross multiplication when you have an equal sign. So here we need to find the value of r. So we need to isolate that sin 30. So we divide by sin 30 because any number that is divided by itself is equals to 1. Therefore, we remain with 1 times r, and that will be r. So what you do on the left hand side, you do on the right hand side. The reason being there's an equal sign. So what you do on the left hand side, you do on the right hand side, so that the things remain equal. So here, you can now easily deal with it. Let me just take a calculator. So here, you can divide sine 30 degrees and sine 30 degrees because they are of the same kind and of the same size. So you have r remaining, r on its own, and then you punch in your calculator 5 over sine 30 degrees, and then you close the bracket, and then you get 10 units. That is your value for r. So that is how you use the sine of an angle to calculate a side. So this is basic information on the trigonometric ratio, which is called the sine. So let's write it in short. How can you easily identify sine? You just write S or H, capital letters. So the S representing the sine, right? So the sine, we're just doing this so that you can easily memorize this. The sine of an angle, which is equals to the opposite, the O represents the opposite over the hypotenuse. So just for you to remember how to calculate the sine of an angle, you have just to remember S or H. So this is an easy way of solving sine. And then we move on to the cosine. I think we're done with the sine. We move on to the cosine of an angle. So this is our second trigonometric ratio. It is written shortly as cos when you're calculating. You don't have to write cosine when you're calculating. You write it as cos. So it is also the cos of an angle. So remember, trigonometry deals with angles. So cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse, right? Adjacent over hypotenuse. So the cosine of some angle is equals to the adjacent side over the hypotenuse, right? Let me just fix that. Just errors. Okay, yeah, back here. So the cos is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. Let's go back to that triangle. So you can see that angle, we use that angle of 30 degrees as our reference. You can see that 30 degrees is our reference. So we see the adjacent side. By adjacent side, it just means the line that is the line that is in line with that 30 degrees. So that's your adjacent side, you see. So remember, an angle is the space between two lines. So 30 degrees is formed by line BC and AC, as you can see indicated. So here you write X over R. So where do we get this R? Let's just remind back. You can see R is the hypotenuse. So you know that cosine is defined by the hypotenuse, adjacent over hypotenuse. So R is the hypotenuse. So this X, it's representing the adjacent side, and then the R is representing the hypotenuse of that triangle. Remember, the hypotenuse is the side that is opposite to the 90 degrees angle. So how do you solve this? We go back there. You can see that the adjacent side is unknown. We do not know it, so we need to solve for it. So what do? You write the cos first of 30 degrees. Where do we get this 30 degrees? Let me just go back and let's see, where do we get it? The 30 degrees is that angle you can see there is equals to the adjacent side of that angle, which let me just write theta there. So the theta is representing 30 degrees. So, and that is the cos. So here cosine of 30 degrees is equals to the value of x, which is unknown. Okay, let's just go back there. You can see x is unknown. The value of x is unknown, so you just write x over, and then you see your r. You already have your r. That's 10 units. That is what we solved using the sine of that angle. So x over 10. Then you will be able to say over 1, because that's a fraction. Anything divided by 1 is that thing. So you can write that in form of a fraction so that you can cross multiply, since there is an equal sign. So you have to cross multiply everything, 1 multiplied by x over there, and then you have to multiply also 10 multiplied by cosine of 30 degrees. So now you just simplify everything. So 1 times x is x, and then 10 times cos 30, just write it as it 10 cos 30 degrees. Then you punch into your calculator the value of 10 cos 30 degrees, so that let's just see how much it gives us on the calculator. That's likely to give us 5√3. Yes, that's 5√3 according to the calculator units. So you know that side x is equals to 5√3 units. Remember, when they give you certain units like centimeters, millimeters, or kilometers, you're going to say 5 kilometers. But then here they did not give you that. We just have to write 5√3 units, which are unknown. So we move on to the tangent. And let me just wind a bit. You can see the cosine, we did not really write it in short, so you can write it as C A H. So what does that represent? It represents cosine. The C is just an easy way to remember, and then that's adjacent over hypotenuse. So that tells you that cosine is defined by the adjacent side over the hypotenuse of a triangle. So cosine is equals to adjacent over hypotenuse. So the tangent is defined, is shortly written as tan. When you're writing it, it's just tan of an angle, right? So tan of an angle is equals to the opposite side of that angle. The opposite side of that angle over the adjacent side of that angle. So let's just go back first back to that triangle and see what is the opposite. So you write tan of an angle theta, right, is equals to, let's go back to that triangle, and then that is our triangle. You can see that angle is 30 degrees. So this is opposite the y side over the adjacent. Let's see what is the adjacent. Is the x side. You can see that x side. So that is how you define the tangent of an angle. So here, let's actually link this together. Y is the opposite side, x is the adjacent side. So you write it as y over x. So here, let's just take a moment and pretend that we do not have the value of x. Yet we have 30 degrees, right? Let's go see the value of y, which is 10 units. No, that is 5 units, I'm sorry. So the value of y is 5 units. And then the value of x is supposed to be 5√3. But then if we're going to substitute the value of x, we're going to not be solving anything here. So let's actually take a moment and pretend that we do not have this value of x, which is 5√3 units. You can see that's 5√3 units. We can write it down. If you write it down here, we just put x for the sake of proving if x is 5√3 units using another trig ratio. So you do cross multiplication over there, and then you multiply is equals to 5. 1 times 5 is 5, and x times tan 30 is x tan 30. So x tan 30 degrees. So here you have to isolate or remove that tan 30. How do you remove the tan 30? You divide it by tan 30 so that it becomes 1. So what you do on the left hand side, you do on the right hand side. Why? Is because there's an equal side. It means things are equal. So you have to do the same thing on both sides. Therefore, this tan 30 and tan 30 will divide each other, and then you will remain with x on the right hand, the left hand side, and then you will calculate with your calculator 5 over tan of 30 degrees. 5 over the tan 30 degrees give you 5 root 3 units. Do you guys notice that the value of x there is the same as the value of x we calculated using cosine? This value of x is equal in magnitude with this value of x, which we have calculated using tangent. So this is how you use your trigonometric ratios to calculate using an angle.